What's up, everyone, and welcome into another edition of the Ryan Ripken Show. No, I am not Ryan Ripken. I'm your host, Zach Bollinger, and we will be having another interview day. We will be showing the entire 50-plus minute sit-down with Orioles legend Jim Palmer on today's show. While obviously some things we're trying to work through, some things, get all of our ducks in a row so we can hit the ground running once baseball season begins. So appreciate you all sticking with us. If you're new to the channel, as always, hit that like and subscribe button. Means a lot to us. And before we kick off this stream, let's head over to our friends at AutoStream. $50 off when you mention Ryan Ripken. Say the Ryan Ripken Show sent you, and you get $50 off any work, all maintenance. So go check out our friends at AutoStream Car Care Center. And after we play the Jim Palmer interview, I'll get into a little bit more about maybe the Kittredge injury. We have Eflin pitch today, looked good. Got some World Baseball Classic stuff. Bills make a big trade for DJ Moore. So we'll talk about that a little bit on the other side. But without further ado, want to get right into this. Here is our full sit down with Jim Palmer. Enjoy, everyone.
Years. Has it felt like 62 years that you've been involved with the Orioles, professional baseball, all the above? Does it feel like it?
Not really. It's funny when you play. Of course, I got to the big leagues when I was 19. I kind of had to be here. The first team I played on, 1965 Orioles, pretty good ball club. They won 94 games. We had some, pretty good
team.
Yeah, I mean, you had Boog at first, and you had Derek at second. You had Louis Aparicio, and who's going to the Hall of Fame at shortstop. You had that Brooks Robinson guy on his way to 16.
Yeah, he's pretty good too.
Had been MVP in 64. Sam Bowens and right. Blefrey, Kurt Blefrey came from New Jersey, was Rookie of the Year. And center field, we had Russ Snyder, we had Paul Blair. He would come up that year. So, you kind of make the club, and then you got to stay there and whatever. But it doesn't matter what kind of year you have, whether you play or you broadcast. You're always preparing for the next year. I think if you want to be good at what you do, and it doesn't matter whether it's baseball or anything else, there's a process of being prepared. And, I won 20 games, 8 out of 9 years. Every year they took those 20 games away. So you have to, you go to spring training, and really, you probably play golf and run and play racquetball and basketball and all that. And then December 1st, back then we'd go to the YMCA in Towson, and then you'd start thinking about, are we going to win again? Are we going to try to be better than the Yankees or the Red Sox? And that's a progression. And I think broadcasting is the same way. I was so fortunate that I started broadcasting when ABC called. They said, what's the 1978 one-game playoff between the Red Sox and the Yankees? If the Yankees win, Reggie Jackson will not do the games for ABC. You will, with Howard Cosell and Keith Jackson. And that's the game, Guidry against Mike Torres, who had, already won 20 games for us and then got traded to Oakland. Now he's with the Red Sox. And I watched the game, and that's the Bucky Dent home run. So every time I see Bucky Dent, I said, you're the reason I'm a broadcaster. He hits the 3-run home run, I think, in the 4th or 5th inning. It goes from Red Sox up 2-0, 3-2 Yankees, 4-2 Yankees, 5-2 Yankees, 5-3 Yankees, 5-4 Yankees, and then Guskasic, who we saw at the event, Seniors Foundation, comes in and gets, I think, Rice and Fisk and Yaz out in the 9th inning, and I become a broadcaster, never knowing that that I would be doing that when I was 79 years old.
So we can thank Bucky Dent for that.
Oh, exactly.
Isn't that funny, kind of how it all unravels of one thing leads to another? And we'll get into the broadcasting side of it, and how I feel about it, because I'm getting into this now, and I'm trying to figure out the right ways to work and how to do it. But like everything that you just talked about, preparation for whatever you do is the key to everything. I think someone said how you do one thing is how you do all things. And when you're playing, you got to be prepared. And if you're broadcasting, you also got to be prepared. And it shows if you're not prepared on the field or in the booth. You said about getting up to the big leagues, though. You said about staying. I think that nowadays we look at all the talented players, but you know this better than me, Jim. The most talented guys don't always stay. Talent helps, no doubt about it. But it's that other element that can separate themselves. What was it for you? What did you have to learn to stay up in the big leagues?
Well, I had to listen to your grandfather. You know, when I was 18 years old, I was playing for Aberdeen, South Dakota, and I knew I was going to one of the A teams. I had just signed, and we went down to Thomasville, Georgia. You had the 4A, you know, the rookie league, or the guys that may end up being in the rookie league. Jimmy Fry was managing that ball club, who would eventually be our hitting, coach and first base coach, and managing Kansas City Cubs and the GM of the Cubs. So he didn't even really have first year with the Orioles. He had played at 35 and could almost outrun everybody in our camp. I mean, and he's 35 years old, but he didn't hit home runs. He had 335, and next thing you know, he's a coach for the Orioles. But Thomasville, Georgia, I was, I think, number 128. So, I was supposed to be a bonus kid. I think I got 30,000. My parents got 10. That was a lot of money back then. People said, "You're not a bonus kid." I said, "Whatever." I mean, it doesn't really matter. I was just, I had no idea what I was doing. And I thought I was going to go to Stockton. And as it turned out, we all lived in barracks, and some guys pull it, I'm sleeping, and we're all, getting up early in the morning, and you used to have a bugle. That was like our wake up call, But it was an old Army barracks.
So wait, time out.
Yeah.
So you're at an Army barracks.
Yeah.
So
So that was Thomasville, Georgia.
So that's what it was. So
You had like 5 fields.
So minor league baseball, you're sleeping in a barracks.
Yeah, exactly. And you're happy about it. I was getting ready to make $411 after taxes, living in a basement in Aberdeen. So somebody's kind of shaking my bed. You're going to Aberdeen now. As it turns out, I played for Cal Senior, and but it was kind of interesting when you look back. I learned the Oriole way when I was 18 in Thomasville. If you struck out, you had to run around the field. Not just pitchers.
Yeah.
They wait till the inning's over, and because you weren't going to hit that inning, you were running around the field. And guys didn't like to run, so all of a sudden maybe they're making a little more contact than maybe the modern day player. Can you imagine? So I learned that. I was shagging for, Jimmy Fry was hitting fungos, and the sun's going down. We're down in the McDaniel field. They called it the Hole, one of the 5 fields they had there. And sun's going down, and I'm supposed to throw, do my, my bullpen. And I said, "Mr. Fry," I'm supposed to throw today. And Vern Hoshek ran the camp. And, really good baseball guy, but to the book. And then, so he said, "Well, why don't you run?" I was down the left field line. He said, "Why?" And the bullpens are down the right field line. He said, "Why don't you run over to right field and tell Mr. Hoshek that, maybe he forgot about you or whatever." So I run around the perimeter of the outfield. I get over. And again, this was a hole. So you had pine trees. The sun's starting to go underneath the trees. It's my turn to throw that day. That's what they told me. So I run over there and I said, "Mr. Hoshek," I said, "Mr. Fry told me to run over here and ask you, maybe you forgot about me." He said, "Son, I don't get paid to make mistakes. Get your ass back in left field. I'll let you know when it's time to throw." I said, "Yes, sir." So that was one of the lessons I learned. And then I think I pitched 27 scoreless innings. I have no idea how I did it, because I was just learning how to pitch, because I was a all-state football, basketball player. I played baseball in the summer, and high school baseball and whatever, Babe Ruth, Pony League, You're
a multi-sport athlete again.
Yeah, but I never really focused on baseball. Now I'm focusing on baseball because I had signed with the Orioles. So, I lined out with 2 outs, and I hit a line drive to right field, and I'm out. I run hard out of the box. Guy catches the ball. The inning's over. Now I'm going to go focus on, getting the other team or the inter squad game that I was pitching. And at lunch they go, "Palmer, where are you?" And, "Stand up." And I stand up. They said, "Don't we run balls out in the Oriole organization?" I said, "Yes, sir." Now, I didn't want to, you didn't try to explain, "Well, I was out and I did run hard." You just go, "Yes, sir." I saw another guy messed up a ball in left field. He's trying to make the club, and he's screaming at him. We don't wear our emotions on our sleeves. That's what the Orioles don't do that. Now, obviously guys do. So, we got that. And then the guys, he said, "You're going to Aberdeen, South Dakota." Now, I didn't know I was going to be playing for an all-star team. Your dad, and you talked, it goes back to what you asked me. The first morning, we get to Aberdeen, people were great. It's It's not, I think Pierre, South Dakota, but is the capital, but it was one of the bigger cities.
Yeah.
And, you are living in a basement. When it rained, your shoes would float to the corner, and, you didn't have a mirror in the bathroom. You'd have to, I don't think I even shaved when I was 18. So it was fairly rustic and not what I was used to in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Right.
But I still remember the first morning we were kneeling down the left field line, and it's frosty, because Aberdeen was really hot in the summer, and in April it's pretty cold. And, we don't really have jackets and whatever. And your dad, the first thing he ever said was, the reason we're here? And everybody's looking at him. He said, looked at the empty stands. He said, because of the people that come out here to see us play. That's why we're here. I mean, we need to entertain them. And then he said, he goes, first of all, he said, we're never going to let anybody outwork us. It's about work ethic. You're going to come here and work your job. And I know, Cal Senior always say his baseball uniform was his work uniform.
Yep.
But it wouldn't work, because the second thing he said was, you're going to come to the ballpark and try to get a little bit better, because we all want to get to the next level.
Yeah.
We're in high A. I guess they called it high A. Now they have, it was just a little bit older players. And, I was probably one of the youngest guys, along with Mark Belanger, who had a pretty good career with
Yes,
Gold Gloves. So, so he said, work ethic, come to the ballpark, get a little bit better. Number 3, let's have a little bit of fun. How do we do that? Now, we'd already won like 11 in a row in spring training. We had a good team, and we were beating Earl Weaver's AA team, which,
how did Earl take that?
Well, I don't remember. I didn't know. I just saw this kind of pudgy guy with, he didn't have gray hair then, but he was still pudgy and he was still short. And I didn't know him yet, or I would have actually really felt good about this, but so, and then he talked about, being very supportive, as a team, because you do that together. I mean, teams are teams. And probably the most important thing he said, there are no such things as shortcuts.
Yeah.
And, everybody wants shortcuts and all that. So I think once you get that little life lesson message, even though you're 18 years old, what more do you need in life to be successful other than picking the right organization?
Yeah. Well, and that was a different time. I mean, right there, you were picking a little bit more of how it is in the draft now, or unless you're a free agent.
Yeah. I was a year before the draft. So I could have signed. Houston offered more money. Paul Richards, who had run the Orioles, was over there with what they called them, the 45s, I guess. And I was pitching up in Winter, South Dakota it was a college league. I was the only high school player after I got out of high school in 1963. And I was supposed to pitch the first game of a doubleheader. And the scout says, Paul Richards wants to have breakfast with you. And I go back to his hotel room, and he said, I'm going to leave 2 telegrams in Scottsdale, which, what the Orioles used to train when he was the GM. And he actually managed the Orioles too. And he said, one's going to be for $40,000, one's going to be for $48,000 without a college scholarship. And the first year we'll give you $3,000 under the table, because the maximum money you could make back then was $7,000 a year. And just let us know which one you want. And then I was supposed to pitch the twilight doubleheader. He got the game moved up to 1:00. It's about 100 degrees. And I had a home run, and I pitched and all that. I mean, that's what Paul Richards could do. Yeah. And, my parents, again, my parents taught me about education, talked about being polite, hard work, and all that kind of stuff. And when I, got back to Scottsdale, Paul Richards came first, the Orioles came second, and my parents, next day, 10 teams called, because we'd gotten back a little bit earlier. When you spend 2 months in Winter, South Dakota, people were great. You want to get back to Scottsdale. You want to get back to home.
doubt. Get home.
I'm only 17 years old. And as it turned out, I made the right decision. I mean, to play on the teams I played on with the players I played on. I mean, I did an autograph thing for the block party the other day with Boog Powell. And we're together about 50 minutes. And of course we were together before, and I'm going, boy, was I lucky. Yeah. I mean, not only was Boog a fabulous player, second in MVP in 69 and 70. He did win the MVP, hit like 350 home runs, but he's such a good guy, and he's so nice to people. Yeah. And, you have a choice in life. I learned it with some of my teammates. You want to be rude, or in the same amount of time, you can be nice. And Boog really set the tone for that.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at this, what I'm hearing with the Orioles organization, and I knew some of this, but for everyone that listens to it, at a young age, you need guidance once you move on in your life. And whether you get that growing up, or in this case, this was you going off to work, after high school. This is going to work, but you need to make sure you have a good structure. The Orioles were a good structure, set the right goals, disciplines. Hey, I know with Cal Senior, we're going to hustle hard. You're going to be disciplined. We're going to work on getting better. We're going to try to, our practice is where we're trying to make perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. Make practice perfect. The game is hard, but what we can control are these elements. And then on top of it, then you have those core values. Then you have guys that buy into that. And then you're a part of teams that have great players, but then those people kind of, are all a part of that. I mean, heck, Jim, you were in the glory days, and I hope there's more glory days for the team. But when you came up, those teams were good.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had
really good.
So I'm there from 65 to 80, kind of 84. Had the best winning percentage in baseball. So I always wonder, what if I had signed with Houston? Probably wouldn't have been in the Hall of Fame. The Dodgers wanted me to go to SC for a year, and they signed Jeff Torborg instead of me. Now, if I sign with the Dodgers, had a nice organization,
yeah,
and I get tendonitis. I mean, I did not hurt my shoulder pitching. I hurt my shoulder in 1966 when we won our first World Series. 115 games. It went from about 100 innings to 208. Now I had pitched 180 something my first year in ball, so I was ready. But my wife was pregnant. Susie was pregnant with my first daughter, Jamie, and I would go home and paint. I couldn't afford a painter. So I'm rolling the painting the baby's room, and I just irritated the tendon. Robert Curlin, Bob Curlin was one, Curlin Job. Job is the guy that did Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
Curlin cured my arm in a day. He just said, put your hands up. The groove opens, injected it. He said, I was working out at Dodger Stadium, wait 2 days, come throw 120 feet, 90 feet, then throw, and it was gone. But now, in those 2 years, when you go from 7,500 to 15 when you win the World Series, and then they cut your salary, and you're in Miami, you're in Elmira, you're in Rochester, and your family's back in Baltimore, you're still pitching. And I was pitching for your grandfather when I was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and I got 2 strikes on Billy Canigliaro, Tony C's brother.
Yeah.
And I tried to throw as hard as I could, and when you have a bad arm, it's hard to do, and I heard everything pop.
Oh,
yeah. And I threw a couple of slow curveballs. Your grandfather came out. He said, what's going on? I said, I don't know. It's not good. So I came back to Baltimore, and it's funny. Sports medicine was so in infancy back then that Ralph Salvin, our trainer, I'm combing my hair. And when I'm combing my hair, he's behind me, and he says, geez, you got a big hole in your back. I had torn the infra spinatus, which is one of the rotator cuffs.
Yeah.
And then I didn't go to the team doctor. I went to a physiatrist over at Sinai Hospital, Stanley Cohen, and he did all kinds of tests. And when he tested that nerve, and when you put the Teflon needle in, it sends a pattern.
Yeah.
It went, and I go, my heart sunk. As it turned out, I rehabbed it, went to Puerto Rico, played for Frank Robinson, went 6-0 with a no hitter, and
you're back.
Yeah. Well, and I'm back on a team that won 109 games.
So it's fascinating. There's so many things that are fascinating with this. I could go so many different ways. One, I wanted to in the midst of, yes, hurting your shoulder and battling through, and the team's being good. Also, as the part of you were one of the best. You were developing to become one of the best players, but then you weren't getting paid that much. You're just talking about painting yourself because you couldn't afford to actually have someone come in and paint there. What are some of those other stories? I mean, I know, for you doing the jockey commercials, or the jockey ad, that was a way for you to get more money so that could help fund with you, your family, and beyond that.
Yeah, I used to do speaking for Sports Illustrated. It was like, you'd go speak at, one of the guys that started at IBM, and it would be $2,500. And Keith Morris, who did the speaking for Sports Illustrated, called me. He said, listen, instead of a speech, they're going to use 9 athletes in an ad for jockey, take away their uniforms, what do you have?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be one of the 9. And I, a typical ball player, I said, well, what are they going to pay us? He goes, well, more than you make for a speech, $3,500. So I went up on the Metroliner to Baltimore, and stayed at the Hilton. They actually shot the ad. It was a luncheon. They gave me a glove and the briefest pair of underwear. People are eating ham and cheese and pastrami. I'm standing there. They're actually shooting the ads. And, but again, there were 8 other guys. Now, Pete Rose was supposed to be there. He missed his flight. They flew him in on a I think a chartered
jet,
plane.
yeah.
Might have not even been a jet in 1977, but I think it was. And I came up $35 round trip, and I showed up on time. And apparently, the next year they asked me to do it again. I was the only guy that they did. And so that was 78, 79. They didn't use anybody, used generic guys. Because you got to understand, there are a lot of models look a lot better than I do. So, but what Bill Herman, who was the director of advertising for Jockey, said, okay, 75% of women buy men's underwear. So we do need to have somebody that, looks good in underwear. They market tested Steve Garvey and myself. And Steve Garvey looks a little bit like me. I'm just a lot taller because my wife had a home furnishing store in Palm Beach, and I'm out unpacking boxes on the sidewalk, and some woman goes up to the cash register breathlessly and says, Steve Garvey's out on the sidewalk. And she said, no, that's actually Jim Palmer, and he's taller and he's in the Hall of Fame. So anyway, I 70, 79, they used a generic model, and then 1980 they asked me to come to I think, where was it? Naples or something. They had a big show for all their jockey people and all that. And Howard Cooley, the president he was a brand new president. He says, I'm Howard Cooley. I'm the new president of Jockey. He said, I don't even know how much they're paying you. And I said, don't lose any sleep over it. But I worked for them for 19 years. And what Bill Herman understood was, okay, women they buy the underwear. So I guess the ads look pretty good. They used a guy named Harold Krieger who did all the Life and the Look covers. He was one of the best studio photographers. And when they did the test, I go, now, I kept myself in shape, but I go, geez, I actually look pretty good.
I look good now.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, good lighting.
No, it wasn't. That was I don't think they retouched things back then. Now, they could make me look good in 1979 or at age 79.
They started introducing you as Jim Palmer, male model and Hall of Fame baseball pitcher.
I don't think they do that.
Do they not do that? Do you want me to have that on the broadcast now? We can have that be Jim Palmer, male model first.
No,
and then
because
Hall of Fame
Kevin
pitcher?
Brown, I cannot visualize Kevin Brown and doing underwear ads, to be quite honest.
I wasn't really thinking of Kevin.
No, but I am. So
you are now.
Well, when I worked at ABC, I worked with Howard Cosell for 9 years. And Bob Uecker, who just passed away, one of the great people in baseball. And one night, we're waiting for Keith Jackson to do a Texas and Oklahoma at noon, take a private jet to New York, ambulance through the Bronx to get to Yankee Stadium for an 8:00 ball game. And Uke's going to do the game if Howard doesn't show up. If Keith Jackson doesn't show up. And he looks at Howard and he goes, Howie, how do you look in the nude? Well, see, not that Kevin Brown would be as bad as Bob Uecker, but, some of us just look better. And but see, men weren't threatened. I did all the store appearances and all that. And again, I did them for 19 years. I'd probably do 20, 25 store appearances. So I got to meet baseball people. Yeah. And I'd be in San Francisco. I would meet a potpourri of different baseball fans.
I'm sure.
I had women come up and they would say, would you sign my underwear? And usually they would take a pair of underwear out of their purse or something. This woman opens up her raincoat. She has a sheer body stocking and a pair of yellow Jockey for her. And I said, well, where would you like me to autograph? She says, well, how about right here and add your middle name? So again, and they were shooting one of those Wednesday night things and all that reality shows, and I'm going, boy, is this embarrassing.
Man, what a time. But you know what? What I love about this one, it ended up being a good thing for you because you paid
I didn't
bills.
Have to leave Baltimore.
It's a great relationship.
What you're reading, but isn't that what? Worked for ABC for years.
Yeah.
Started in 78, worked all the way to 95. Worked for the Orioles for almost 20 years. Been now 62 years if you go from playing to broadcasting. Did the Money Store ads for like 10 years and all that. Call the Money Store.
So you were able to. Yes. You were able to. The thing that I tell a lot of people nowadays, one, you gotta fit what people want, but two, you gotta be willing to work with others. And that's the reason why you've been around for so long. People want to work with you.
Well, you're learning this in this business. You got to be accountable.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I mean, everybody said Earl and I had a love-hate relationship. Talking about Earl Weaver. And, you know, he never shook my hand. He just, what am I going to do when you lose? I said, well, maybe get him next time, Earl. I mean, it's not that hard. So, you know, one time I pitched 5 innings in spring training. I'm running in the outfield, and he calls Mike Flanagan over, and he says, Mike, he said, you see that guy out there? Just do what he does. You'll never have a problem in the big leagues. Now, Earl's not going to tell me that.
So he never told you that story. He
No.
told Mike that.
He told Mike that. Now, Mike and I used to sit in the first row of bulkhead. Earl
Right.
was sitting first class. We'd be in the bulkhead. Flanny smoked. So
Yeah.
I'd sit in the window and blow the smoke to the other side of the plane. And so, you know, he said, you know, Earl, you know, told me just do what he does and all that. So years later, we're up at Cooperstown, probably 2007. You know, and as Earl got older, I couldn't joust or joke with him as much as I used to.
Yeah.
So we're getting ready to go over the Hall of Fame. It's Saturday night before the induction, and I looked at him, and I'd gotten married, and he looks at Susan, my wife, and he says, "I told you not to marry him." And I said, "You don't really mean that, Earl." I said, "Mike Flanagan told me what you told him back in 1976," and he goes, "I told them all that."
That's really cool.
Well, it is, except Earl was never going to
tell you that. Well,
but
Earl,
back to your point, about accountability.
Yeah,
we had a love. You know, none of us, you know, like to lose. Earl hated it. I hated it because, you know, World Series shares were when you didn't make a lot of money. I mean, I made $7,500 my second year in baseball. The World Series share was $11,683.04.
Yeah.
It was $4,000 more than I made.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that you know was a tremendous impetus to win.
For sure.
But the thing about Earl is, just think about it. Earl took over at 68 at the All-Star break for Hank Bauer, who had managed our first World Series.
Right.
You know, we had had all kinds of arm injuries and whatever, and Earl had a lot of success in the minor leagues. So he's the first base coach, and at the All-Star break, he becomes the manager. Now, you know, he takes Don Buford, you know, moves him from second base to left field, becomes one of the best leadoff guys, 69, 70, and 71. Makes a lot of changes. You know, eventually, you know, he'd take your dad and move him from third to shortstop because he wanted more offense. But Earl, let's see, 69, he wins 109 games, a one-year deal. 108 the next year, one-year deal. 101 the next. Every year, we would win between 109 and 95 games.
And one-year deal.
Yeah, one-year deal until 1980.
Yeah.
And all those years, he gave me the ball every fourth day. And how did he get the one-year deals? Because he trusted the people that, you know, that he put in the lineup, or the guy that started every fourth day.
And I think that's a good point to be made when you just mentioned earlier about when you transition to broadcasting and you're transitioning to whatever you do, it's the same thing as preparing, where you don't know what the future holds. Right now is the important moment. Stay in the moment, stay focused. Because even back then, all that success, you would think nowadays with all the managers and everybody wanting more security, and it's still to an extent, right? We've seen it with coaches. They could be gone in an instant. A player can be gone in an instant, but you're seeing coaches have 2 or 3 year contracts to start. There's a little bit of leeway with these guys. Back then, you had to win. It was win. What have you done for me now? And then those managers, those people in charge, who did they trust out there that could go out there and do the job? You were one of those guys. And I mean, one of those memories I got to ask you, and this is maybe there's a lot of different stories. One thing I am very proud of, because we're not going to see it again, of what you accomplished, again, with the 20-game winners, besides the fact that also all the innings you threw. How many innings you end up throwing again? 500,000 innings or whatever it felt like.
3,948 or something.
That's it, right? No, but those numbers, by the way, we're not going to see innings like that anymore.
Well, you don't have to.
Well, and it's a different. We'll get into that in a second, Jim. But your group 20-game winners on the same team,
71.
I believe you were the last one to get their 20th win.
Oh yeah,
it was the last game for you to start.
Sunday afternoon in Cleveland. 3-0 win.
Were you aware of all of that going on?
Was I aware? Well, you know, it's funny when you pitch. That was the great thing about pitching for the Orioles. You know, when I 66, we traded for Frank Robinson. Milt Pappas won over 200 games. So it wasn't like Milt couldn't pitch.
Right.
So we traded him to Cincinnati. We got Frank, and we had 49 home runs, won the Triple Crown, 2 in the World Series, one in game 1 and then 1 to win game 4.
Right.
And that was his second MVP. I think his first Triple Crown. So, we didn't, Dave McNally and I were probably the 2 best pitchers other than Steve Barber, but he had some, elbow problems. Tom Phoebus, like I mentioned, Baltimore kid, he'd come up and pitch well at the end. Wally Bunker, I was telling Ben McDonald this story the other day. Wally Bunker went 10-1 in A-ball. Now, he was a year older than I was. So he's up so they call him up. In the old days, if you pitched in A-ball, they bring you up for the last month.
Yeah.
They didn't have a 40-man roster. It didn't count on your free agent time because you couldn't be a free agent and all that. So Wally comes up, and Charlie Lau, went on to be one of the great hitting instructors, but he's one of our catchers. Mm-hmm. And Wally's warming up in Cleveland. And back then, he just wear the mask, didn't wear the protectors and all that. And Wally's just throwing, he's throwing 2-seamers and 4-seamers. And after about the 10th pitch, Charlie takes his mask off, walks halfway out, and he says, Wally, he goes, what are you doing? He says, well, I got a 2-seamer and I got a 4-seamer. He said, you got to let me know. He's going to break my hand. That's just 2 fastballs. Yeah. One dove and the other one would take off.
Right.
And then he had a little breaking ball. So the next year he goes 19-5. He's rookie pitcher of the year. So Bunk was, he was on the team, but he had hurt his arm. He got married. Wally was never one of the guys that was going to play basketball and racquetball and run and do all that kind of stuff. So he came spring training and was really never the same pitcher, even though he did win game 3, 1-0 in the 66 World Series. And then he would go to Kansas City and whatever. So we didn't have great pitchers, but I always, we traded for Mike Cuellar in 69. McNally came back, won like 16 straight games, 17 straight games. Pat Dobson, we traded for him. Now we have 4 20-game winners. And the great thing about pitching and good staffs, you don't win on Monday. You're relaxed because if I don't win today, Cuellar, McNally, and
someone that's going to back it up.
Exactly. So that game was, I pitched against, I think Alan Foster had been a bonus kid with the Dodgers. I didn't want to be the only guy that didn't win 20 games.
Yeah, don't be that guy, Jim. So it was on your mind of being, well, I can't let they all got it. I got to get this.
Well,
this
it didn't
number.
matter that I gave up the least amount of runs. I was, just think about the difference between 1971 and, 2024 or 2025. If you win 19, you know how much money you're making. But if everybody else wins 20, you'd be the odd guy out. So, I pitched well. I hit a line drive off Greg Nettles' foot. It hit him in the chin, and they called it an error. I hit a ball into left center that they kind of messed up. They gave them another error, finally doubled down the left field line. I got thrown out going from second to third on a 1-hop line drive. I was desperate. And we ended up winning 3-0. And, we had 4 20-game winners, which in the modern era, that's,
we're not going to see that again.
Well, it's the only time it ever happened. And it's funny, George Bamberger was our pitching coach, and he used to take off his hat and he'd have little marks, like 4 little marks and then a dash across it. And we go, George, what is that? He says, well, it's complete games. So we said, well, why are you keeping track? He said, well, because I have a $5,000 bonus if you guys pitch more than 50 complete games, which he didn't have. He just wanted us.
He incentivized
he thought
to get the most out of it.
Yeah, he thought we were better than maybe the bullpen.
Do you remember how many complete games you guys had that year?
I think we had 72.
Oh my gosh. Talk about another number that we're not going to see, Jim, anymore.
Well,
the amount of complete games.
Listen, Corbin Burns had a great year for us.
Yeah.
He got $210 million.
Mm-hmm.
He's never pitched a complete game, nor has he ever pitched a shutout.
It's a wild thought.
Garrett Crochet just signed with the Red Sox today for $170 million.
Yep.
You know how many innings he has lifetime? 224.
You threw that in like a month.
Well, no, I almost threw that. I threw 108. Well, it's funny. When I played for your grandfather, it would have been interesting. When I talked at the senior foundation dinner, I said, if I had walked 190 and 182 innings for Earl Weaver, my first year in A-ball and in instructional league, well, Earl, he would have had a stroke. Because he didn't like anybody. He didn't like anybody that walked people.
No free passes.
Because when I was playing for your grandfather, the Orioles came to Aberdeen, South Dakota in 1964. And it was a big, I mean, when your major league clubs coming to Aberdeen to play, you know, the Class A team, it was a big deal. And rain was forecasted. And Cal Senior, we went to the tire shop. He got some tarps. We didn't have a tarp. He's got tarps on the field. He's got old retread tires are going to be retreaded and all that. And about the fourth or fifth inning, I'm coaching first base, and they called this kid up from Double A, a guy named Steve Cosgrove. He'd been a bonus kid with the Braves, and he got like $75,000. And I'm watching him pitch, and I'm coaching first base, and I mean, this fastball took off, curveball drops off the table. And he's pitching in Double A. So when I come into the dugout, I said, "Wait a minute, if they throw like that in Elmira," I said, "how are we ever getting to the big leagues?" Yeah. They go, "Don't worry about it." He goes, he throws ball one. Weaver goes, "Here we go." Walk in the ballpark, ball two, because he was a little bit high strung. Great stuff. I mean, really great stuff. And he just unnerved him. And I never got that from Cal Senior. I mean, you walk 130 and 129 innings. I thought I got better. I was 11-3. I mean, how about your starting staff?
Yeah.
Eddie Watts, 14-1. Should have been 15-0. John Scruggs dropped the ball, and he lost 2-1. Davey Leonard, Baltimore kid, only guy that ever played at Johns Hopkins, and went to the big lights. Davey signed for 20% discount on a pair of spikes. Went 60-21 in the minor leagues for the Orioles. Played in the big leagues 6 years.
Wow.
So he's 16-4. Next year he goes 20-5. Next year he goes 15-3 at AAA. Yeah. Tom Fisher's 15-6. I'm 11-3, and Mike Davison, a left-hander that got drafted, is 11-4. That's the starting staff. And we all got to pitch. Are you getting my drift here?
Oh, I'm getting the drift.
100. I mean, I had a knot in my back because we didn't have a trainer, and I pitched 29 innings, and then went to instructional league, pitched another 54. The other guys all pitched 180, 160, and whatever. So we got to learn to pitch. Yeah. We didn't have anybody telling us, what your spin rate is, or, the shape of your pitches. The hitters kind of told you what that was.
So kind of to wrap this up, because in the pitching side now, and the game has changed, and the knowledge of it, right? The goal is still the same. Get the guy out. I don't care how you really do it. You got to get him out. But we do know the threat of walking guys is not as high as it used to be, right? It's, hey, throw your best stuff. If you walk a guy, but you're able to get him out with a strikeout, no harm done, right? Back then it was no free passes. Make them earn it.
And don't strike out.
Right? The dynamic has changed. What, maybe in your eyes right now, is there anybody in the bigs right now throughout all of baseball that kind of makes you feel that old school?
It's a good question. I mean, you got Brandon Webb up in San Francisco, sinker ball. I mean,
it's a hard thing to think off the top of our head.
Well, because everybody, it's perfect example. Let's go to Cade Popich, who pitched opening day for the Orioles. Yeah, left-hander. If you're breathing, what did Pete Rose say about lefties? If you're breathing and you're left-handed, you can pitch in the big leagues. Right. So I thought he would actually have more velocity, but his average fastball, I mean, he'll hit 93 or 4 every once in a while, but it's 92.7. Yeah. And he could pitch inside. But if I go back, going back to my year, we all know Nolan Ryan, pitched 7 no-hitters, won 319 games, whatever. Yeah. But they had a lefty by the name of Frank Tanana, who in 1975 with the Angels, I thought was going to be better than Nolan. I mean, he could. Andy Etchebarren, who went from us to the Angels, said nobody, Cuellar, McNally, nobody pitched inside better than Frank Tanana. Now he's throwing 95, 96 on the old gun, the slow gun. Great curveball, great changeup. Right. And so that's 1975. So he hurts his arm. 12 years later, I do the last game of the season with Tim McCarver and Al Michaels in Detroit for who's going to the playoffs. Tanana beats Jimmy Key 1-0 on a Larry Herndon home run, throwing about 87 miles per hour. He still pitches in. He still throws his fastball to both sides of the plate. He still has a really good curveball. He still throws strikes one. And he can throw the unexpected. Earl Weaver's always talked about it. That guy throws the unexpected. Well, if you're not going to be overpowering, throw the unexpected. Pitch to both sides of the plate. They don't teach that anymore. I talked to Drew French, who did a great job as our first-year pitching coach last year in 2024. I said, and they asked me, your dad asked got guys to come down to spring training this year. I said, so if I come down, can I teach them to throw the ball low and away? He said, Jim, the average major league pitcher misses their target by 9 inches. And then I watched the video the other day. It's about 12.5 inches. So the plate's 17 inches wide. And if, in the old days, you lived on the corners.
Yep.
You threw strike one away. That was the Oriole. If you pitched for the White Sox and Johnny Sane, it was kind of like today, spin the ball, but George Bamberger was, can you stay out of the middle of the plate? And now it's, okay, how hard do I throw? Can I pitch the ball? Do I throw strikes?
Yeah.
We were talking about Batista. He doesn't need, he was always overpowering. So probably going to have a little problem because he's not a guy that's going to make quality pitches. So if he doesn't get back to 99 or whatever, or if the split stays up or whatever, he probably won't be as overpowering. Hopefully, when he gets, better feel, which is, something, you don't pitch for 2 years.
Well, the thing with the heart of velocity here, for people that want to know, when I was in the minors, they're saying, hey, we're not going to aim corner. We're setting up middle. Mostly. Now, for some guys, you're seeing like Sagano and some other people that maybe, hey, they're going to work in and they know how to maybe manipulate the ball. But for some of the flamethrowers like Batista, hey, aim middle, and we're going to trust that your stuff's good enough that your ball's going to move and your fastball then can set up your splitter. And if his fastball's playing, the splitter's devastating. But to your point, if it doesn't do that for those players, that's when they get hit. It's kind of like the both sides of it. And that's when I look at it, like we talked about this with Dean Kramer. Dean's that type of guy that has the ability with his stuff to be able to go from side to side. Now for Dean, it's just going to be about, can you execute those pitches? But it's a different chess game. I mean, we talked about Mike Mussina. Moose, you were a chess player, Jim. You're thinking about, what do I need to do? How did this guy face me last time? How is he swinging the bat today? And then you were going to fill up the zone. And if they beat you, you were going to remember that as well, too, for the next time.
Well, yeah, now they tell you. But, a couple of years ago, back when 10 of us or 11 of us got COVID, when we had the 83, celebration.
Yeah.
So I'm in Hopkins for like a week because I got COVID pretty badly. And I'm watching the game out in San Diego, and Dean Kramer's pitching. So he gets into the ninth inning, or, maybe they get a hit or two. Nothing. He's pitching against Blake Snell, who obviously, ended up getting 175,000 from the Dodgers. So you better pitch well.
For sure.
So now Trent Grisham leads off the third inning. And Dean hadn't thrown a changeup. He gets to 3-2, and he throws him a changeup for ball 4. Not the changeup he had last year. This is the 2023 changeup. Because last year's changeup really got better.
Yeah, it really good.
He didn't win as many games because they didn't score as many runs, but I thought he pitched as well or better than he did the year before. So he ends up walking him, and the Padres, now you're back into the heart of the lineup for the second time. So now they, and plus they have a pretty good hitting team with Manny and all their guys. So I see Dean. I didn't do the game, so I'm watching it. So the next time I'm broadcasting, I said, what was your pitch selection for Grissom? I said, he wasn't late on your, he wasn't on your fastball. It really wasn't on your cutter or your changeup. I said, why would you throw a changeup, a pitch you hadn't even thrown in the first 3 innings? He's, to lead off an inning. You want to get the first guy out.
Yeah.
My theory about getting the first guy out when I was in A-ball, I could walk, if I got the first guy out, I could walk the bases loaded and still get out of trouble, and I did that on many occasions. And Dean goes, well, the book on him is he doesn't hit changeups. I said, but he didn't hit any of your other pitches. So that's that little flap here that says the guy doesn't hit the.
Well, the thing for you, so your philosophy, leadoff guy, because I want to get to that one, that point. Leadoff guy, get him out. Don't give him an opportunity.
Well, the numbers tell you that. I mean, like 49% of the time when the leadoff guy gets on, he scores.
Yeah.
And it's down in the 20s so that's a really important number. And you know how I learned that? Earl Weaver said he was tired that I wouldn't throw strike one. So he goes, I'm like, try to do my Earl. Okay, here's the deal. Throw strike one, I'll give you $4. Throw ball one, you owe me $2. Well, so after 2 games, I saw Dempsey's glove and I saw Earl's little face right in the middle of the glove. After 2 games, I had, he owed me $124.
Yeah, you were filling it up, Jim.
Yes, because I saw his little face and he made a good point. throw strike one.
Yeah.
And I had good stuff, so it just made me focus more. So now you get so many different numbers. And one of them is, now I think the crucial pitch in baseball is the 1-1 pitch.
Yeah.
Because if you go 2-1 versus 1-2, I mean,
change dynamic.
Yeah, it really changes dynamically and whatever. But if you can throw strike one, and then strike two, the batting average every year with 2 strikes, not 0-2, but any strike two, it's like 167.
Yeah.
So you like to get to 2 strikes, but strike one is really important. And for me, it was just Earl once again. I mean, he used to give us lectures on how we should pitch and all that. And then Dave McNally told him in Milwaukee once, he said, I never made it's one of the great stories. He said, 2 things. We had lost like 7 or 8 in a row on the road. He said, 2 things. I never left a guy at third base with less than 2 outs. Always got him in. Sacrifice fly. Got to hit the ball the other way. And Dave McNally says, yeah, but you never played higher than Double-A ball. Now, he did drive in 104 runs at Double-A. I will say that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he says, and the other thing is the game never ends till you make the last out of the game. Now, that is pure logic. Seriously, you get 27 outs.
Yep.
Till you make the 27th out, the game keeps going.
Anything can happen.
So he said, I never, ever made the last out of a game. Now, we're sitting in County Stadium. Hank Aaron played there. Eddie Matthews with 508 home runs. Aaron with 755. Stan Musial probably played there. Ted Williams probably played there in an all-star game. And I bet one of those guys made the last out of a game. And here's, number 4, Mickey Rooney, which is what they called him in the minor leagues, telling us he never made the last out of the game. So I raised my hand. He goes, what do you want? I said, well, we all know why you never made the last out of a game. He goes, what was that? He said, I said, they used to always pinch hit for you. And so anyway, he says, the meeting's over. He said, you've ruined the mood. I said, well, and I go, what mood was that? You're telling us you never left a guy at third base and all that. But that was Earl Weaver. Yeah. But, the interesting thing about those things is you pay attention. We didn't have a whole lot of meetings. So when Earl said something, whether you agreed with it or not, his favorite pitch was the slider because that's why he never got higher than Double-A. The slider was the pitch back then.
Yeah.
Now it might be a cutter or whatever. But the perfect example is you have to your point, you have to set up pitches. And you have to react not to a scouting report, but where the bat head is.
Yeah. Because on those days, some of those guys can the report might say, hey, they're a really good fastball hitter, but like Rafael Devers coming to town, Rafi's missing everything. I think there's a couple of things mechanically. Yeah. He's frustrated the situation, but if you're watching him, he's going, man, he's not catching up to a heater. He might love a fastball. He might hit it anywhere on a normal day.
Well, we've seen him hit every ball.
That's the point is you've seen a guy, those superstar players. Yeah, the scouting report's going to say one thing, but what's that player dealing with on that specific day? And I think that's the telling sign for players out there.
The other thing is like the first McNally and Cuellar win 23, 24 games in 1970.
Yeah.
And we're playing the Reds. So bench hits, 45 home runs.
Yeah.
Tony Perez, Hall of Fame too, with Johnny, 40 home runs. Lee May hits 35. So I'm pitching game 1 in Cincinnati. Now, Cuellar and McNally were really good. Now, I won 20 games the first time I did. And we go through the first 7 hitters, and they're all high fastball hitters. So, we got Jim Russo, our scout. He's kind of did the pre-scouting. And I raised my hand. I said, why am I Cuellar had the great screwball. McNally could pitch in with great curveball. I go, why am I pitching? They go, not your high fastball. And as it turned out, we ended up, I gave up 3 early runs, but we won 4-3 and ended up winning 4 games to 1. But it was all about matchups, and it was all about reading the bat and all that. And I think we've kind of gotten away from that a little bit because of all the advanced scouting. It's okay, guy can't hit this, so you throw it to him. I go back to the first series. Mullins, Chad Green comes in. He throws a 95-mile-per-hour fastball up and in. The ball up and in, you can add 5 miles per hour. You've got 1,500 times in the
Oh, yeah.
Okay, where's the bat head have to be to hit the inside fastball? Way out in front.
Mm-hmm.
So you can almost add 5 miles per hour. So that 95 was 100. He swung when it was in the glove. What's the next pitch? Slider for a 3-run home run. So
read the bat.
Yeah.
And we'll take it. If you're a nose fan, you'll take it. But that's the exact conversation is help yourself out. Read what's going on.
But you know how we learned that? Sat on the bench. And when you weren't pitching, you sat with Kurt Moten or Terry Crowley or Merv Rettenman or McNally or Cuellar and all that. And we watched the game.
Yeah.
And when you watch the game, it's like broadcasting, except you got to clean up your language when you're on the air.
Yeah, you can't say some of the things
Yeah.
that are on the bench there. The guys in here have heard me speak
Well,
a little differently.
I
there.
haven't used it this year yet, but there's a term. The ball was right down so now it's going to be right down the zipper.
Yeah. Is that what you use instead now? Right down the
I
zipper?
might have to use that.
You have to use that term?
Yeah, you never know.
I think people can read between the lines on what the other term could
Gary
be.
Thorne and I used to always talk about our last broadcast as we ride into the sunset. How could he ever throw that pitch? What was he ever thinking of? And of course, they stream it and then we're gone. And, Gary's teaching, high school and doing college stuff out in Santa Barbara. And I'll be in an old age home somewhere,
You'll be running around working out and doing your thing, Jim. You're living till 100 years old. We've already set the precedent for you.
I want to live just to annoy people. I want to live till I'm 100.
Hey, you can come annoy me all the time.
I'm around the corner from you.
I know you're right here, so I'm glad you're able to get in here. To wrap this up, there's one thing just looking back. If there's one thing that you could give advice to people that are chasing this next generation of what you've been through, all the experience, doesn't have to be baseball wise, but what is something that you specifically would want the younger generation to know?
Awareness. You got to look around. I remember my youngest daughter went off to Europe, and Kelly was wonderful. The younger and feisty. I mean, when I lost the last game of '82, somebody writes, "Well, Jim Palmer didn't care." I mean, if we win, we go to the playoffs. If we win, I get a Cy Young award. If we win, we do accomplish what? And I lose to Sutton. I was 15-5, had a good year. I was at 37 years old at the time. And so if somebody writes that Jim Palmer didn't care because he's going to go work for ABC. And Kelly wrote a letter to the editor. How would you know? You don't live with my dad. You don't know how much he cares and all that. So Kelly was going off to Europe, and I said, Kelly, peripheral vision, be aware, look around. Life's not just about you. And I think you have to, you want to be in the moment. I think all the great, I don't care what you do in life, you're in the moment.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're,
I used to have a stunt man. He goes, yesterday's a canceled check. Tomorrow's a promissory note, and today is cash on the barrel. And the people that make adjustments and are aware, that's why the injury to Colton Cowser is disappointing because, pretty gifted player. He's exactly what you want from a number one draft choice. He's almost won a Gold Glove in left field, could have, throws well, runs well, has power. Now, okay, didn't hit lefties well, didn't hit with runners in scoring position well. So that's your first year in the big leagues. Struck out too much.
Yeah.
Hustles everything. That's how he broke his thumb.
Yep.
If he's loafing, there's no close play at first and all that. So I'm thinking, okay, if I was Colton Cowser and I was running the organization, I might have BJ Surhoff talk to him. Now, why would I do that? Well, BJ hit, 287 lifetime.
Off lefties.
He had 287 off, off lefties. He got 2,300 hits. He had 298 with runners in scoring position. He's left-handed. Why? How were you able to do that? So, and he's local, and he used to coach for the Orioles. So again, you have to look around. You have to listen to people. And, I roomed with Robin Roberts when I was 19 years old. I put him to sleep asking him questions. Finally, he'd say, I'm 38, you're 19. I got to get some sleep. We'll talk about this in the morning. But he mentored me. And you got to look for a mentor.
Yeah.
You got to look for somebody that did it before, had success, and then you ask them why.
Yeah, I love being aware of what's going on. Take a step back, reflect, and then in this case, I like to say be a sponge. Listen, take it all in, because you never know what somebody else that's either walked the walk and has done it can teach you, or somebody else says one thing or something can go in your mind that goes, I didn't think of it that way, and it betters you for your future.
Yeah. Why do I try to be as good a broadcaster as I am? Because I work with good people. Always.
Yeah.
I work with Gary Thorne, and I work with Kevin Brown. I work with Ben. Ben is very, 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 very prepared. Yeah. So do I want to be as good as Ben? We certainly have different styles. The answer is, of course, yes. Yeah. And, I had a guy walk up to me last year that Aaron Goldsmith, who broadcast for the Mariners, and he says, it was like the third day, Sunday morning. They had come in Friday, Saturday, and he says, I listen to some of your broadcasts because I don't do all the games. He said, you kind of, about both teams. And I go, well, it's kind of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
I get the newspaper, I'm already going to get the Cincinnati paper because I'm going to get the Cleveland paper because my next series after this are going to be Cleveland and Cincinnati. So I said to Aaron, I said, why do you say that? He said, well, you're in the Hall of Fame. You don't need to do that. I said, maybe that's why I'm in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. It's cool when you have it for that perspective. And Jim, I could talk to you forever about all these things. So I'll have to get you this time, or maybe we go to one of the Italian restaurants around here, get some food, but I appreciate you stopping in today.
Well, there's many of those.
Yeah. Well, then let's pick a couple. All right.
And as always, I could listen, like Ryan just said there, I could listen to Jim Palmer tell stories, give interviews all day. Truly just one of the greatest baseball minds to ever live. I saw someone here say he's just an almanac for baseball. He truly is. Jim Palmer's he has forgotten more baseball than probably everyone, me, all the chat will ever know combined. Just truly one of the greatest to ever do it, not only on the field, but as a broadcaster as well. So really appreciate Jim. That interview was from right before last season. So as we kind of get our ducks in a row, we are going to continue when we can't do live shows and completely commit to giving you guys the best content. We are going to be playing some of our long form interviews over maybe tomorrow and into next week as we ramp up and get ready for the massive stretch that is the baseball season. But before we head out of here, did want to talk a little bit about, Orioles played today. Dylan Beavers gets a triple, also walked because all he does is get on base. Sammy Basayo adds another hit. Leody Taveras with a walk. Ryan Noda, 2 walks. Will Robertson with the 2-run homer. So big story, though. Zach Eflin, 2 innings pitched, 3 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 hit. Really good to see that. Also, his velo was a little up. You can tell that he's amped up. This is a guy that Zach Eflin, if this team can get him back and healthy, it's the big thing, being healthy. It's why he only signed 1 year, $10 million. And then there's that option into next year that I believe goes up to more $22 million. Zach Eflin, if healthy, at 1 year's $10 million, can be a real X factor for this team. People forget at the end of 2024, yes, the Orioles went out, they acquired Corbin Burns. They obviously had Grayson Rodriguez. They had Tyler Wells. They had John Means. Had Kyle Bradish. Injuries happen. Corbin wasn't the best down the stretch in late July and August, but that's kind of been his MO. He's still one of the top pitchers in the game. People forget Zach Eflin was probably the most, I don't want to say dominant, but he was the most consistent pitcher on the Baltimore Orioles in the second half after being acquired in 2024. So if Zach Eflin can get back to that, then I think there is the sky is the limit for this rotation. I think the Orioles, if healthy, and that is the big if, it's not going to be perfect, but that's why the depth at starting pitcher is so important for the Orioles right now, because if they can get these guys going, if you can have a majority of them stay healthy throughout the season, you're going to be in a really good spot. Andrew Kittredge talked earlier today, said, hey, shoulder's nothing serious. He called it just a little cranky. He said he's hoping to throw soon. He's probably not going to be ready for opening day, but will be, at best case, just a little after that. We talked to insider Mark Feinsand, at this point, probably 3 weeks ago, and I actually asked him about bullpen arms. And I'm like, hey, we're getting up close to spring. Well, spring training's already kicked off. Opening day's like a month away. What's happening with bullpen arms? Michael Kopech's on the free agency block. You don't really see any trades happening around this time. And Mark pretty much said, hey, don't worry about it. Like bullpen arms, this is something that teams are going to wait and see what they have before they go outside. So yes, Andrew Kittredge being down before, opening day is not great. Hopefully he's healthy and can get back. But what this is going to allow is for the Orioles to have an opportunity to see what other guys can do. And that in and of themselves is going to be a very important storyline to follow. I don't know how Coulomb isn't signed yet. He's just one of those guys that goes completely against everything StatCast. Like, he's not throwing it hard. Like, all of his peripherals, you're like, should he be? But he just gets outs. So I would love Danny Coulomb back so much. But for the Orioles, this beginning time, like, yes, Ryan Helsley, we'll see what happens with him. He's going to be the closer. That is his role. He's stuck in that. So now it's okay. Who are going to be the bridge guys? You were assuming that Kittredge would be the bridge guy in the 8th. Okay, he's going to be out for a little bit. Now it's time to step up. And then as we talked to Mark about, he's like, hey, it's not an if, it's a when. It's not it's not will there be, it's how many will be there. Relievers, even on the Rockies last year, got traded. There are going to be relievers available at the deadline. See what you got. Understand where your holes are in the bullpen. And as Mark said, if I look at a team at spring training and I go, man, I love their team, the only weak spot is the bullpen, then you're doing pretty well. Bullpen is the easiest thing to kind of fix up as the season goes. You'll see waiver claims. We're going to get to August and we'll be playing that fun game of where did this guy come from? It happens every year, but you also find some super reliable guys in those transactions. Think the Rico Garcias. Danny Coulomb was a waiver claim right before the season in 2023. You get guys all the time in all shapes, sizes, all different roles. Bullpen, you can pick up guys off waivers. You can give some quote-unquote failed starters opportunities. We talked to Buck Showalter, 2 weeks ago at this point. That's what he said. He's like, man, think about Zach Britton and them. Like, yeah, they just didn't have, it didn't go well starting, but damn talented players who found their role. So we'll see what happens there. Tyler Wells going to most likely be in the bullpen. We'll see how other things shake up. But I don't think that the bullpen is necessarily something that you hit the panic button on. See what happens, see what you have, and then go from there. And we'll see how it all unfolds. But before we head out of here, going from this stream to our friends over AutoStream, $50 off when you mention Ryan Ripken off of anything there. Go get your car. If you need anything done, any work done, the weather, hey, it's hopefully going to be sunny out. Hopefully going to be sunny out this coming weeks and getting sunny and hot again. You're going to want to take the car out. You need anything fixed up, head over to AutoStream Car Care Center. Mention Ryan Ripken and get $50 off. Cannot be combined with other offers. But that's going to do it for this quick show today. We will be back tomorrow in some capacity, probably something similar to this. So thanks for bearing with us as we get everything set to hit the ground running as we get to opening day. We will probably have a little bit more of a normal schedule in the next week or so, but appreciate you all as always. And we will see you back here tomorrow at 3:00 for another edition of the Ryan Ripken Show. Have a great one.